Welcome to a tutorial today with Loom and Looney. Today's tutorial is going to be on our Ocean Whitecaps bracelet. Thank you to Christy Collars Fisher for helping name this bracelet. It is a reversible bracelet, as you can see. The version that we're going to be doing today is this one, the purple, yellow, and black. The supplies that you will need is your monster tail, a hook, and your C-clip. And of course your bands. Today I'll be using black, neon purple, and yellow. Okay, first thing that you're going to do is make sure that your monster tail is with the red dot facing on the left hand side. You're going to lay your border bands, which are my black, in a triangle on both ends. And then what you're going to want to do is twist the corners. Oops, it's coming off. Twist the corners in a circle around the pegs. Just take those and hit the corner of the peg and twist those into a circle. Again, hit the corner with that and twist it into a circle around the pegs and push it down. Twist the corners and the end into a circle. As so. Then, with whatever color you want for the middle, mine is going to be neon purple from rainbowloom.com. You're going to want to lay an upside down V and a figure 8. It's going to go from the end peg on the bottom left hand corner to the top middle peg in a figure 8. From the top middle peg down to the lower right hand corner, again in a figure 8. And then we're going to lay a V from the top left hand corner to the middle peg, again twisting that into a figure 8, and from the middle lower peg to the upper right hand corner peg, again in a figure 8. Now we're going to loop all of the bands that we can loop, taking the bottom bands up and over, and it's going to be the 3 pegs on the upper and lower middle that we can loop the bottom bands up and over. Up and over. Up and over. That one wants to be stubborn. Okay, now there's no more twisting of the bands. Again, you want to make sure that that red dot of your monster tail stays on the left hand side. Now we're just going to lay our triangles on the ends. Now we're going to loop our bands as we can. So we're going to lift those bottom bands up and over. 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 Now we're going to lay our upside down V. Now these bands you're going to loop individually as you lay them. Bottom bands you're going to loop up and over. Up and over. Lay the next band. And you're going to loop it out, up, and over, up and over. Now we're going to lay our V-bands. Again, we're going to loop those out individually. Loop those bottom bands up and over, up and over. Lay the next V-band and loop it out, lifting those bottom bands up and over, up and over. And again, we're going to lay our border bands, laying those triangles on the end. Again, you want to try to make sure you lay those bands. Try not to twist them. So if you lay them twisted, your bracelet is not going to be as clean or as neat of a finished product. Then you're going to lift those bottom bands up and over, up and over, bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over. Upside down V. Again, looping those bands individually. Bottom bands up and over, up and over. Up and over, up and over. Now our V-bands. Looping those out individually, bringing the bottom bands up and over, up and over, looping them out, up and over, up and over. Laying our border bands again, triangles on the end, and looping those bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over. Again, those bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over. Our upside down V's, looping those bands out individually, up and over, up and over, up and over, up and over. Now for our V-bands. Laying those and looping them out individually, lifting those bottom bands up and over, up and over, bottom bands up and over, up and over. Pushing down, and you can already see your design coming out the bottom, and you'll see one side will have the yellow coming down in the middle, and the other side will have the neon purple coming down in the middle. Again, making sure that your red dot of your monster tail is on the left hand side. Laying our border bands on the ends, triangles, and we're looping those bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over, bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over. Upside down V-bands, looping those out individually, bottom bands up and over, up and over, bottom bands up and over, up and over, And our V-bands, looping those out individually, up and over, bottom bands up and over, looping those bottom bands up and over, up and over. Now I'm going to do a few more layers with you, and then I'm going to show you how to close the bracelet off, because this is a pretty basic, simple design to follow, I feel, and after we'll do a few more layers, it should be a pretty easy pattern to pick up. So we'll layer our border bands once again, triangles on the end, lifting those bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over, up and over. And our V-bands, upside down V-bands, I'm sorry, laying those individually, looping those out, up and over, bottom bands up and over, next upside down V-band, and looping that out, up and over, and laying our V-band, looping that out individually, bottom band up and over, and laying that other V-band and looping that bottom band out, up and over, and our border band up. That band there doesn't look very good. So we're laying those border band triangles. And we're looping those bands, bottom bands up and over. Up and over. Up and over. Our upside down V. And looping those out individually, bringing those bottom bands up and over. Again, making sure we're looping those individually, bringing those bottom bands up and over. Making sure we're keeping that red dot of our monster tail on the left-hand side. Laying our V-bands, looping those and bringing that bottom band up and over, laying that other V-band and looping those bottom bands up and over, trying to make sure that you're keeping your bands as neatly laid as possible and untwisted. Okay, we'll do one more layer, laying those border bands, laying those triangles, lifting those bottom bands up and over, up and over, up and over, up and over, laying those upside down V-bands, looping those out individually, bringing those bottom bands up and over, laying that other upside down V-band and bringing those bottom bands up and over, and laying that V, laying those bands and individually looping those out, bringing that bottom band up and over, bringing that bottom band up and over, laying that other V-band and bringing those bottom bands up and over, If you need help continuing the pattern, please rewind the video and pay attention to the previous instructions. If not, we're now going to be at the point where we're ready to close off our bracelet. And this is what you'll do. You're going to lay the border bands as we did on the previous layers. So you're going to lay your triangles on the borders with whatever border color. In my case, it was black. And whatever border color you chose, you're going to lay your triangles and bring those bottom bands up and over like so. And continuing in your border color, you're going to lay your upside down V-bands and loop those out in your border color. And then you're going to continue in your border color laying your V-bands and looping those out, so that your end result will be that all of your bands that are left on your loom will be in your border color, like so. Then what you will do is you will proceed to take the bands that are on the end pegs from the left and the right, and you'll move them to the adjacent peg. Like so. And you'll see you have 2 bands here and 2 bands here. You're simply going to take the bottom band and loop it up and over on both of those pegs. Then you're going to move the bands from the bottom pegs to the top pegs on all 3 pegs. And you want to be careful that you don't lose any of the bands, or that they don't pop off, so that you don't lose any of your progress. Then you're going to flip your loom around, and you're going to take the bottom bands on all 3 pegs and simply loop them up and over, up and over, up and over. Then you're going to take the bands on these 2 end pegs and simply transfer them over on top of the band on the middle peg. And then you will be able to attach your C-clip. Like so. And you can see that you'll have your neon purple is the center on one side, and the yellow will be the center on the opposite side. And that's how you make the Ocean Whitecaps bracelet. Thank you for joining me, Loom and Looney. Until next time, goodbye.